Hello, my friends, and welcome. Tonight we're traveling back to a time before electricity, before street lamps, before the glow of screens kept us awake long past sunset. We're going somewhere slower, darker, stranger, and maybe a little cozier than you expect. This is Weird Sleep Rituals of Medieval People. A long, relaxing history journey designed to help you unwind, learn something gentle, and if you like, drift right off to sleep. Before we begin, go ahead and get comfortable. Dim the lights, or switch off the screen completely. You don't need to watch, you can just listen. If you have a blanket nearby, pull it close. Maybe add a pillow behind your back or under your knees. Let us slow the day down. Take a long, easy breath in. Hold just for a moment. And exhale slowly. Feel your shoulders soften. Let your jaw unclench. Let whatever you've been carrying today drift to the edges for a while. You can pick it up again tomorrow. Tonight is for rest. Before you settle too deeply, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from, and what time is it for you right now? Drop a comment when you wake up. It always amazes me to see people listening from Pakistan, Canada, the UK, India, the Philippines, whole families, students studying, night shift workers trying to wind down. We're all sharing this quiet space together, across time zones. Tonight, we'll move slowly through that world from sunset in a country village to crowded town inns, monastery prayer in the deep hours, and the strange wakefulness between sleeps. You'll hear how people prepared their homes for night, why they slept so close together, what they believed about dreams, and how the first light of morning slowly brought life back to the world. If you drift off at any point, that's perfect. This story will keep going without you. You can always come back tomorrow and pick up where you left off. Imagine, if you will, a small medieval village, somewhere in Europe, many hundreds of years ago. The sun is setting slowly, and the pale golden light of late afternoon fades into the soft blue of dusk. This is not the modern world, where cities glow with electric light. In these times, when the sun sets, the world becomes shadowed, quiet, and far more mysterious. The village is simple, a handful of wooden cottages with thatched roofs, smoke gently curling from their chimneys as families prepare their last meal of the day. The ground is damp with the day's work, the faint smell of tilled earth and hay lingering in the air. In the distance, you can hear the low sound of cattle shifting in the barn, and the sharp calls of birds making their final flights before darkness. There is no hurry here. People move slowly. The day is ending, and life is winding down. In one home, a woman tends to the fire, using a long iron poker to shift the logs just enough to keep a steady warmth through the night. Nearby, her children sit on a rough wooden bench, their hands sticky from the remains of a simple supper, perhaps a broth of root vegetables, or a piece of coarse bread baked earlier in the day. As night approaches, there is a rhythm to the household. The fire must be tended, ashes gathered, and wooden shutters closed tightly to keep out the cold and, some believe, wandering spirits of the night. A heavy wooden bar might be set across the door. Medieval nights were not just dark, they were deeply dark, pitch black except for firelight. For many people, the dark carried fear, of thieves, of wild animals, and of the unknown. After supper, families would gather close, often sharing stories. This was a world where storytelling was not a pastime but a vital tradition. Tales of saints, of mysterious spirits, or of brave ancestors would be told in calm, low voices, the children listening as their eyelids grew heavy from the warmth of the fire. Some families would sit in silence, simply enjoying the company of one another. Others would hum old songs, or quietly recite prayers for protection during the long hours ahead. Sleep was not just a biological need, it was a time when the soul was believed to wander. Dreams were thought to hold meaning, and a restful night was seen as a kind of spiritual blessing. Let us imagine the interior of a medieval cottage. The walls are wooden, perhaps plastered with wattle and daub, uneven but strong. There is one main room where most of the family's life takes place. In the center is a hearth and open fire pit that glows with soft orange light, sending dancing shadows across the low ceiling beams. To add light, people used candles made of tallow animal fat, which gave off a dim, flickering glow and a faint smell that was not always pleasant. Wealthier households might have beeswax candles, which burned brighter and with a cleaner scent. In simpler homes, rushlights reeds dipped in animal fat provided just enough light to see one's way, but nothing more. The firelight is soft, warm, and hypnotic. It is easy to imagine someone sitting near the hearth, staring into the flames, their mind wandering as the long day ends. Outside, the sky has gone dark. Stars are visible, perhaps more than we can ever see now, their cold white glow scattered across a sky that feels infinitely deep. By now, most families have finished their evening routines. The floor is swept, if it can be, and the tools of the day, wooden bowls, iron pots, small knives, are put away. In the corner of the main room is the bed, though not a bed as we know it today. A medieval bed for peasants might be nothing more than a wooden frame filled with straw, covered with woolen blankets or furs. It is firm, scratchy by modern standards, but warm enough for the cold nights. Families did not always have separate rooms. Often, the parents and children all slept in the same space, sometimes even in the same bed. The idea of personal space, of each person having their own mattress, is a relatively modern concept. In these times, warmth and safety were more important. To sleep close together was not strange, it was survival. Before lying down, a simple prayer might be whispered, from ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties, and things that go bump in the night. Good Lord, deliver us. These words, or something like them, reminded people that the night could be both beautiful and dangerous. In towns and cities, a curfew bell was rung at dusk. The word curfew comes from the French phrase couvre-feu, meaning cover the fire. This was a signal for people to extinguish or cover their fires to prevent accidental blazes in the night. The sound of the curfew bell would echo through narrow streets, and doors would close, leaving the town to settle into darkness. Night watchmen patrolled the streets with lanterns and staffs, calling out the hours in a slow, rhythmic chant. For those lying in bed, this call might be the last sound they hear before drifting to sleep, past 10 o'clock, and all is well. I want you to imagine lying in that straw bed. The room is quiet except for the occasional creak of the wooden frame, or the soft sigh of a sleeping child nearby. The fire burns low, its light reduced to embers, glowing faintly. Outside, the world is utterly dark, no street lamps, no hum of cars, no glow of screens. You might hear the distant howl of a wolf in the forest, or the hoot of an owl. The wind rattles the shutters lightly, and in the stillness, your own heartbeat feels slow and steady. There is a sense of deep connection to the earth, to the natural cycle of night and day. Sleep comes not from forcing it, but from simply being still, allowing the body to surrender to the quiet. In the next part of our journey, we will step into the strange world of shared beds and crowded inns, places where privacy was a rare luxury, and where sleeping next to strangers was considered perfectly normal. If you're still awake, gently stretch your fingers, maybe roll your shoulders, let the body soften again. We're moving from the safety of a small rural cottage to the bustling, unpredictable world of medieval inns and shared sleeping arrangements. The concept of bed sharing. Imagine traveling during the Middle Ages. There are no motels lined along highways, no phones to call ahead for reservations. Journeys were long and exhausting, often made on foot, horseback, or by cart, over rutted roads or muddy tracks. After days of travel, you would long for a safe, warm place to rest. But here's the strange part: beds were rarely private. Sharing a bed with family, friends, and often with strangers was common. Privacy was a luxury. Warmth, safety, and proximity to others mattered far more. You push open the heavy door of a medieval inn. A warm wave of air hits your face, the smell of burning wood, old ale, and damp wool. Inside, the inn is alive but dimly lit. Candles flicker against rough-hewn beams. At one table, travelers sit hunched over bowls of stew, talking softly about the road ahead. Inside a medieval inn, the innkeeper greets you, a man with sleeves rolled up, apron streaked with flour from baking bread earlier. He doesn't offer you a room with a private bed. Instead, he points to the sleeping quarters upstairs. There's one large bed, low and wide, stuffed with straw and covered with scratchy woolen blankets. 2 or 3 people are already there: a merchant, a soldier, maybe a farmer on his way to market. They're strangers, but that doesn't matter. Tonight, you will all share the same warmth, shoulder to shoulder. This wasn't considered odd or inappropriate. Bed sharing was simply how things were done. It saved space, conserved warmth, and offered safety, especially during harsh winters when a lone traveler might otherwise freeze. Picture that room. The beams above are darkened with smoke from years of firelight. A single narrow window lets in a slice of moonlight, silver against the wooden floor. On a nearby stool sits a small jug of ale and a loaf of dark bread. Your boots, muddy and worn, are set near the hearth, drying overnight. The room smells of straw, wood smoke, and the faint earthy scent of wet wool cloaks steaming near the fire. It wasn't only travelers who shared beds. In most medieval homes, especially among peasants, entire families slept together in one bed or on one large platform. Space was limited. Heat was precious. And in many places, farm animals were kept indoors, sometimes even sharing the same sleeping room. Imagine lying down with your children on one side, your spouse or sibling on the other, a dog curled at your feet. Outside, frost glistens on the window shutters. Inside, your collective body heat makes the room bearable. It's cozy, but also noisy: soft snores, shifting bodies, and the occasional cough or whisper in the night. There is something strangely comforting about this image, isn't there? In our modern world, we often sleep alone, tucked away in private rooms. But back then, sleeping was communal. It wasn't just about rest. It was about togetherness and survival. Let us explore what a medieval bed felt like. Forget soft mattresses filled with memory foam. Most beds were made of wooden frames filled with straw, hay, or reeds, sometimes topped with woolen blankets or fur pelts. The straw would be replaced every few weeks, and often sprinkled with dried herbs like lavender or rosemary to deter insects and freshen the scent. Even so, the bed was firm and prickly by our standards, with the occasional creak from the wooden slats beneath. Picture lying on that straw bed now. You shift slightly and hear the crunch of dried reeds beneath you. Your head rests on a rough linen pillowcase, stuffed with feathers if you're lucky or with more straw if you're not. A heavy wool blanket covers you, its coarse fibers slightly itchy but wonderfully warm. The fire from the hearth glows faintly in the room. Shadows flicker along the walls, like ghostly shapes dancing with the flames. When you shared a bed with strangers, it required a quiet kind of trust. Travelers might lie back to back, keeping to their own side of the blanket. A knife or pouch of coins might be hidden under the pillow for safety, but the shared experience of being tired, cold, and grateful for shelter often created a sense of camaraderie. Imagine this scene: a weary merchant tells a tale of a storm on the road, his voice soft as you settle beside him. A young apprentice, traveling to a distant city, falls asleep almost immediately, curled under his wool cloak. Somewhere in the background, the innkeeper's dog gives a soft, contented sigh. The fire crackles, and the room, though crowded, feels safe. Even kings and nobles shared beds not with strangers, but with trusted courtiers or companions. Sharing a bed was often a mark of intimacy or alliance, symbolizing trust rather than romance. Important discussions might take place as two men lay side by side under heavy quilts, talking in hushed tones until sleep overtook them. Inns were not always quiet. Below the sleeping room, the tavern might still hum with conversation, laughter, and the occasional clatter of a jug. But as the night deepened, even the tavern went still. The last embers glowed faintly in the hearth, and the inn sank into darkness. Listen, for a moment, to what that night might sound like: the faint hiss of cooling logs, the rhythmic breathing of people sleeping nearby, the soft whistle of wind outside, slipping through closed shutter. And somewhere in the distance, a church bell striking the late hour. From family beds to travel inns, whether at home or on the road, the communal nature of sleep in medieval times was a fact of life. Bed sharing wasn't a curiosity, it was a necessity, and while we might find the idea strange today, there was comfort in it: the warmth of others, the reassurance of not being alone in the dark. Tonight, as you listen, think of those medieval travelers lying shoulder to shoulder, their lives so different from ours yet united by the same need for rest and warmth. Sleep has always been a bridge between days, a gentle pause in the story of life. In our next chapter, we will step deeper into the mystery of the basic sleep cycle, the practice of first sleep and second sleep. We'll explore how people woke at midnight, tended fires, prayed, or simply gazed into the dark before drifting into their second slumber. We return to our medieval night. The inn has grown silent. The last sounds of conversation have faded into gentle snores, the occasional creak of a wooden beam, and the soft sigh of wind pressing against shutters. But here is something strange about the medieval understanding of sleep: most people didn't sleep all the way through the night. Instead, they experienced what we call biphasic sleep, two distinct periods of rest, separated by a quiet, wakeful hour or two in the middle of the night. In an age without artificial light, darkness ruled the clock. People went to bed soon after sunset, especially during long winters when nights stretched to 12 or 14 hours. After 4 or 5 hours of deep slumber, the first sleep, they would naturally awaken. Not fully restless, not yet ready for morning, lanterns on the wooden beams. The silence outside feels endless, no cars, no hum of electricity, just the distant call of an owl and the whisper of the wind through trees. In monasteries, this midnight wakefulness was a sacred duty. Bells would ring in the deep night, calling monks from their beds to the chapel. They would walk barefoot or in simple sandals across cold stone floors, carrying candles that flickered as they moved. Inside the chapel, chants began slow, resonant, echoing against vaulted ceilings. Imagine the sound, a low hum, words in Latin, rising and falling like waves. While the rest of the world slept, these monks greeted the darkness with prayer. During first sleep, dreams were thought to be messages from God, from spirits, or from the hidden parts of the mind. People sometimes woke from vivid dreams during this middle period and reflected on their meaning. A woman might whisper a prayer to ward off a troubling dream. A man might tell his bedfellow, "I saw a white stag, perhaps a good omen." The middle of the night was dark, pitch black, except for firelight or rushlight candle. Imagine trying to see your own hands in front of you. The shadows shifted and stretched across walls. The flicker of flame could make the room feel alive, as if unseen things moved just beyond the light. Perhaps that's why people often stayed close to the fire during this wakeful time, fanning along and watching the flame dance. Let us imagine a family now, in the deep of winter. They lie on their shared bed, bundled under heavy blankets. The mother wakes first. She slides her feet onto the cold wooden floor, shivering slightly. She stirs the fire, adds kindling, and the room glows again. Her husband wakes next, rubbing his eyes, murmuring about the dream he just had. They sit together for a little while, sipping from a wooden cup of warm ale. The children, half asleep, roll over with soft sighs. Then, as the fire steadies and the warmth returns, they crawl back under the blanket and drift into their second sleep. Why did people sleep in two shifts? Science suggests that this two-phase sleep was natural, without artificial light. When nights prolong, the body has internal clock settled into this rhythm. Deep sleep for a few hours, a gentle period of wakefulness, then a return to sleep until dawn. Even as late as the 17th century, records show people referring to first and second sleep. It was simply how nights unfolded. While most households were quiet, the night watchman was awake during this time. In towns and cities, a man with a lantern and a wooden staff would patrol the streets. He would call out the hour past midnight, and all is well. Both as reassurance and to deter thieves. From your bed in the upper floor of an inn, you might hear his voice echoing through narrow streets, blending with the rustle of wind and the creak of signs swaying overhead. Picture the scene outside your window, cobblestone streets glistening with frost. A single lantern swaying from the watchman's pole. Shadows stretching long and thin across the walls. The distant smell of smoke from a dying hearth. And above, the stars countless, sharp, and cold. After this quiet interlude, people returned to bed. The second sleep was lighter, filled with softer dreams, often just Candles lit for saints. Knives under beds. Bells over cradles. None of this was silly to them. It was comfort. It was habit. It was how you made the darkness a little less wide. So let us settle near the hearth and look quietly at the weird sleep rituals of medieval people, not with judgment, but with curiosity and calm. Close your eyes and imagine, you live in a small wooden house, or a stone and timber town dwelling. Beyond the door lies a landscape of deep black forests, fields, and roads with no lamps. Wolves, thieves, unseen figures, spiritual presences imagined or played. The wind moans in the chimney. The fire must not die. Children cry from strange dreams. In such a world, nighttime needed ritual. It wasn't only about sleep, it was about protection. Medieval people treated thresholds, doors, windows, chimneys as vulnerable places. You will see this theme in ritual everywhere. Before sleep, families might drop a heavy bar across the inside of the door. Hang bundles of herbs or carved symbols above the lintel. Trace a cross in ash or chalk. Place iron tools or a knife near entry points to cut evil influences. Even the simplest gestures matter. A hand resting on the door and a whispered prayer, God guard this house. Small ritual, big comfort. The hearth was life, heat, light, cooking, gathering. Many people believe the spirit of the hearth, whether framed as a saint, ancestral blessing, or older house spirit, needed respect. Rituals might include leaving a bit of food in the pot or the hearth before banking the fire. Speaking aloud to the fire, rest well. Burn in the morning. Arranging logs in a protective symbol across a tri-pattern. It sounds quaint now, but repetition made meaning. You've likely done something similar, maybe tapping a stone burner twice to check it's off, or checking the door lock before bed. Ritual makes sleep easier. Before crawling under blankets, medieval families sometimes bless the bed, sprinkling a few drops of holy water on the mattress or pillow, making the sign of the cross on the headboard, saying a short protective verse, sometimes in Latin, sometimes in local tongue, laying religious tokens, a pilgrimage badge, a tiny saint medallion, a scrap of scripture near the pillow. If you've ever tucked a lucky coin, a bracelet, or even your phone under your pillow just in case, you've done a modern version. Herbs played a big role in medieval sleep rituals, partly for scent, partly for superstition, and occasionally for mild pharmacological help. Common bedtime herbs and uses: belief plus practical value. Herb. Belief use. Possible practical help. Lavender. Calm spirits, warded evil. Mild relaxing scent. Rosemary. Protection, remembrance. Antimicrobial, fragrant. Mugwort. households-oriented beds intentionally, head toward the east where the sun and resurrection imagery rose. Away from doors or windows, to avoid drafts and wandering spirits. Not aligned with chimney flues, believed to be entry paths for smoke and more supernatural visitors. Practical plus symbolic, a common medieval combination. If a child was restless or prone to nightmares, caregivers used gentle rituals, small herb sachet pinned to shirt lavender, chamomile, cross marked in soot on current or pillow, short lullabies naming saints or comforting animals, a bell ribbon tied to cradle to ring if the child rolled dangerously close to edge W's, safety plus sound as a charm. Medieval parents faced high infant mortality and illness. Night prayer for a child was serious, loving work. If you're still with me, do you keep anything beside your bed? Water, a photo, holy book, headphones, lucky stone? Tell me in the comments when you wake. Viewers often help each other build new bedtime routines from old ideas like these. From Scandinavia to the British Isles and beyond, people feared night visitors, beings that pressed on the chest, caused choking dreams, or left sleepers weak. These experiences sound a lot like sleep paralysis, a real phenomenon in which the body is immobile between sleep phases while the mind is partly aware. Folklore turned that sensation into story. A mere root of our word nightmare, a malicious presence that sat on the chest. The night hag, a witch-like entity that climbs onto sleepers. The neighbor as Hilda manifesting at night. Protections included iron, prayer, turning pillows, or leaving shoes facing outward to confuse spirits. Some placed broom bristles at the threshold to occupy the spirit when counting. ISNT, interesting when adults or kids today feel pressure in a dream or someone in the room. We describe REM state carryover. They turned it into myth and created rituals to counter it. Both are coping strategies. Dreams matter, people wrote them down, brought them to priests, compared them to dream books. While interpretations differed, some themes recurred: water overflowing, change, danger, blood, spiritual cleansing. Fields heavy with rain, prosperity, relief from hunger. Fire consuming a building, warning, judgment, need for confession, or literal fear of fire. Traveling light or naked, vulnerability, confession, honesty. Animals speaking, prophetic or symbolic, depending on beast. Some believe dreams from first sleep came from the belly or body. Dreams from second sleep carried more spiritual content, the mind cleared by wakefulness. Whether true or not, it shaped how people told their dreams in the morning. Rituals intensified around certain nights, All Hallows Samhain adjacent periods, spirits near, extra prayers, protective fires. Christmas 12 nights, long seasonal darkness, candles blessed, evergreen hung above doors, prayers for safe winter. Midsummer, protective herbs cut and hung, bonfires, lingering twilight changed sleep pattern but still invited ritual. Sleep at these times felt closer to mystery. Extra candles burned if people could afford them. Some stayed awake deliberately in vigil, a spiritual inversion of sleep. Weather-shaped superstition. Howling wind equals spirits moving. Sudden stillness equals omen of change. Storms at midnight equals divine displeasure. Saints battling evil, or the wild hunt in parts of Europe. To calm anxiety, people used ritual, tossing blessed salt on walls. rhythm simply by repetition. You can almost hear it. A mother recites the same 3 lines every night of Lent. A father adds a special verse on Easter week. It's less about theology, more about rhythm, a reliable sound before sleep. Sound carried protective meaning. Before sleep, households might ring a small handbell once at the doorway. Recite a call and response prayer. One voice speaks, another answers Amen. Sing a brief evening hymn like a simple Kyrie melody as a family. Even secular households hum tunes, room sound reassures. Think of modern white noise machines, lullaby playlists, or the sound of a fan. We still protect sleep with sound. Livestock were precious wealth. Prayers extended to animals. Farmers might mark a cross on stall doors in chalk. Sprinkle salt and rain for blessing. Tie red threads to box cords against envy or harm. Keeping animals calm at night meant fewer sudden noises, better human sleep. Let's take a quiet tour of regional bedtime practices, not strict, but inspired by historical patterns. Mars, heart prayer, lavender in bedding, psalm fragments. Friends, perfume bells, her book, bless salt and fire, heart saint tokens. Scandinavia, iron against trolls or dark spirits, bent near central fire, winter long nights story sharing. Germany, scroll renewed frequently, evergreen springs hung, bear charms for nightmares. Italy, oil lamps in wall niches, terracotta throne stones in beds, Marian prayers before sleep. Iberia, pilgrim shells hung, embroidered cloths with sacred images, communal sleeping on travel routes. As we pass through each place in imagination, the core is the same. Make the night safe, make the bed warm, speak a word for protection, sleep together if you can. Narrator slightly more storytelling cadence, still soft, there is a storyteller of the widow who lived on the edge of the town. Each winter she slept poorly, waking from restless dreams. A neighbor, passing after matins, brought her a small linen pouch filled with lavender and rosemary, stitched with a cross. Keep this in your pillow, she said. It helps me through the long nights. The widow tried it. The scent reminded her of harvest, of summer sun, of her late husband's fields. She slept. Was it the herbs, the memory, the kindness? It didn't matter. The ritual became part of her night. She made pouches every year after that and gave them to travelers headed south. Ritual, kindness, memory, 3 of the best sleep aids we have. You don't need medieval fear to build a night ritual. You can keep something small, light a candle for 1 minute before lights out, blow it out safely. Place a favorite object under your pillow, coin, photo, small stone. Say 3 words, warm, safe, rest, breathe, count 6 breaths, sleep. Ritual tells the body, now we stop. Let us bring the scene back to our medieval home. The herbs are hung. The bed is layered. The door is warm. blacksmith puts away his tools. A child's laughter fades as the door closes. Frogs or crickets chirp softly beyond the village fence. There is no rush, no traffic, no roar of engines. Only the slow, natural descent into quiet. Inside homes, the fire becomes the main voice of the room. Wood shifts, cracking lightly, releasing tiny sighs of smoke. Families gather close, talking in gentle tones, or humming songs to children. Imagine sitting by that fire. You hear logs settling, a faint pop, sparks rising up the chimney. The soft breath of others around you. Perhaps a grandmother murmurs a short bedtime prayer, not loud, just a whisper, meant for the room as yours and no one else. It's calming, isn't it? You don't need the sharp noises of modern life. This was a world of hushed murmurs and natural rhythms. In towns or near monasteries, bells were the heartbeat of the night. Monks rose for prayers at matins around midnight, and the slow toll of a bell would drift across sleeping villages. Picture it, a single, deep tone, low and distant, rolling like a wave through the dark. The sound carried over fields, rooftops, even across rivers, like a guardian voice. For those awake, it was reassurance. Someone is still watching. The night is safe. For sleepers, it might blend into dreams, a faraway sound that marks the passage of time without disturbance. In larger settlements, a watchman walked through the streets, carrying a lantern and a staff. His job was simple: keep an eye out for fire, theft, or danger, and call out the passing hours. You might hear the tap of his staff against cobblestones. The slow, rhythmic call, 2 o'clock, and all is well. A faint rattle of keys as he checks the gates. There is something soothing about knowing someone is awake for you while you sleep. Beyond the homes, animals made their own noise. Cows shifted in their stalls, lowing softly. Horse down, rattling chains. Dogs barked faintly in the distance, warning of passing flocks. Sheep huddled together, making soft, warm bleats as they rested. The barn itself creaked wood swelling with the cool night air, a slow groan as beams settled. Imagine that soundscape, animal breath steaming in the cold. The muffled shuffling of hay. A faint owl's hoot over the fields. It's a symphony of survival, simple and grounding. While homes grew quiet, the village inn or tavern sometimes stayed alive well into the night. Inside, mugs clinked. Low voices murmured over ale. A faint lute or harp plucked by the fire. But outside, the sound was muted, softened by thick walls. A passing villager might hear nothing more than a warm glow of laughter or a final song drifting into the night sky. On rainy nights, sound transformed. No insulation. No glass windows. Just wooden shutters and thatched roofs. Rain pattered on the roof, dripping into buckets where leaks appeared. Thunder rolled softly, low and far away. Wind hissed through cracks in the wood, whistling as though the night itself were alive. To sleep in this environment, people trusted the steady rhythm of the storm and white noise of history. What is perhaps most striking is the depth of silence between noises. No hum of electricity. No breathing of others. The faint creak of rafters. A distant rooster, early but confused. Then, after the second sleep, dawn came with its own symphony, the watchman's final call. Birdsong growing louder. The clang of buckets as someone fetched water. And finally, the church bell summoning all to a new day. If you're awake, tell me in the comments, what sound do you find most relaxing at night? Is it the rain, the crackle of fire, or the sound of silence itself? I read every comment, and I'd love to hear what helps you drift off. As we leave this chapter, imagine the medieval night soundscape blending together. The faint bell of matins, the watchman's staff, the murmur of animals, the breath of the hearth fire, the soft sigh of wind through trees. It's gentle, timeless, and calm. When you're ready, we'll step into chapter 6, Dreams, Myths, and Nighttime Legends, where we explore the strange beliefs and dreams that filled medieval minds while they slept. As we journey into the final stretch of our night in the Middle Ages, the world slows to its quietest moments. The hearth is dimming, embers glowing softly. The streets are empty. And all that remains is sleep, and the mysteries that are lurking. For the medieval mind, night was not just a time to rest, it was a spiritual and mysterious space, filled with dreams, myths, and beliefs that shaped their understanding of the world. So, as we settle into this last chapter together, let us drift into the dream world of medieval people, where reality, superstition, and myth blurred beneath the silver moonlight. Dreams in the Middle Ages were not random. People believed that dreams were messages either from God, angels, or sometimes darker forces. The dream about a rising sun could mean good fortune, while the dream of wolves could be a warning of betrayal. Imagine lying in a small wooden bed, under layers of wool and linen. You've just spent a day of labor in the fields, or tending to animals. As you fall asleep, your mind fills with images, the harvest moon over the fields, the ringing of the church bell, the faces of friends, family, or strangers. To medieval people, such dreams were never meaningless. Every image, every scene held a message, something to interpret. By the 12th century, dream books were circulating in monasteries and noble courts. These were guides, listing hundreds of possible dreams and their meanings. Dream of flying, it might mean spiritual freedom. Dream of water, it could mean change or danger. Dream of gold, a sign of both wealth and temptation. People would wake in the night and whisper their dreams to each other, seeking meaning in the flicker of firelight. The medieval night was alive with mythical beings. Elves and fairies were said to roam freely under the moon. Night hags were believed to sit on a person's chest, causing terrible dreams or nightmares. Wandering souls, ghosts of the unburied, were thought to appear at crossroads, seeking prayers from the living. To protect themselves, people often placed protective charms near their beds, a small iron blade under the pillow, a sprig of rosemary or St. John's wort hung on the door, or simply, a prayer whispered before sleep. For the devout, the medieval night was not just physical rest, it was a time to draw closer to God. Monks rose at midnight to chant matins, their voices echoing like soft waves in stone halls. Lay people often prayed before sleep, reciting psalms or songs burned sage or herbs in the room. They recited prayers over their pillows. Some even carved protective symbols into their bedposts. For medieval scholars and monks, the night was also a time of wonder and study. The stars were seen as divine markers, a celestial map of God's creation. Imagine a monk, standing outside the cloister at midnight, looking up at Orion's belt. The silence of the night